It's hard to imagine a more singular artist in contemporary folk than Annahstasia. Her debut album, Tether, was released last year to overwhelming acclaim, and to many shone a new light on the future of folk music. I sat down with Annahstasia ahead of her 2 shows here in Sydney to chat about reincorporating soul and blues into folk music and more. Annahstasia, so nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Thanks for being here. For anyone who mightn't be familiar with your music, would you mind introducing yourself and a little bit of what you do?
My name is Annahstasia, and I'm from Los Angeles. I would describe my genre as power folk because people like genre, but I am actually not really a believer of genre in the first place. So I would describe my music and its goal as grounding, good soil, humanness, catharsis are all themes and goals of my music.
Wow. You can really hear that in the music. What does power folk mean to you? You know, if I'm to draw, use the antiquated genre comparison, you might go like power pop.
Power pop, yeah.
Seems like a real departure sonically from what you're doing.
Power pop is definitely a departure from what I'm doing in some ways. But the power aspect of power folk for me in the American context was to differentiate from the whitewashing of the folk genre that's happened over time in America, and I guess globally, and to reintroduce aspects of soul, aspects of blues, aspects of rock, aspects of roots music as the power, as in Black Power, but also the power movements of many different subjugated peoples all throughout time that folk music originates from. Folk music being the indigenous music of any place and time. Mm-hmm. And so calling it power folk is kind of like reclaiming my positioning in the folk genre as a Black woman in the genre, and also the sonic influence that comes through when you listen to it.
When I first listened to your album, I found it very singular and kind of peerless. I certainly haven't heard a folk album like it. As you know, as you just mentioned, like it is a genre that has been sort of claimed or dominated by folks who are white and singing from a very particular perspective. But I wanted to congratulate you on the album because it's absolutely astonishing.
Thank you so much.
It's your debut, an incredibly special album. How do you go about making something both sonically so grand and conceptually so grand? From what you just said, you're trying to address a lot of different themes here.
Yeah, time. It takes time. It takes time to first, within yourself as a person, an individual, swallow the sun in a way. Like, okay, this is what I want to go for. This is what I want to convey. It's actually much, much bigger than just me. So I need time to wrap myself around it in a way that I'm able to execute very sharply. So for me, that took 10 years of development, self-development, and 3 years of chipping away at how I was going to record this album, how the instrumentation of the album was going to pan out, how it was going to be recorded, the sound of it. And then when it was time to execute, you know, it's kind of like capturing lightning in a bottle. It's like we weren't very precious with it at that point because all of the prep work was done over those 3 years by me. And at the very end, it was just about capturing the essence that I had spent all that time honing within my own body, within myself, and then just letting it be unleashed. But it's also about asking like multiple questions again and again, also throughout time. So for me, one of those questions was, is this true? And every time I would play the song, every time it would come out of my mouth in front of a crowd, in front of people, there was this question of truth, and if I felt like I believed what I was saying, and that helped me ground the album.
What's the role of truth or honesty in making a great piece of work?
Within the genre of folk, for sure, it is essential to the genre. I believe it's essential to all good music, that there has to be a truth that you, the performer, the singer, the writer, is channeling because when you tap into truth, it transcends time, and it also transcends ego, and it transcends culture and ethnicity and country and all of those things, because that's why, you all the way over here on the other half of the world can resonate with the album that I made from a completely different experience, because it has kernels of truth in it that align. And I think that when, as an artist, you're honest.
That won't bother us.
Okay.
Thank you.
When you're honest with yourself and with your motivations, and you're honest with your perception of the world, and honesty isn't easy. Honesty is constantly changing. The truth is constantly changing because the situation's constantly changing, and the knowledge you have about the situation is constantly changing. So there's no finite truth. But over time, you can kind of triangulate the most true things about our human experience. And your job as an artist is just to observe.
Thematically, through tapping into that truth, you're covering a lot of ground. There are moments of agony, there are moments of sort of confrontation, outcry, self-comfort. It almost feels like something is being purged from you at moments throughout the record. What sort of demands does that make on you as an artist, being so honest in the work?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really lovely question. Because as an artist that is dedicated to truth and honesty, I don't think that within an industry that is about the commercialization of music, I ever get asked that question. Or like, what does it take from me to sustain that in a world that isn't concerned with consistent truth or honesty? Because it's so much about illusion, it's so much about keeping a dream alive in order to keep people outside of their current reality and far from enacting change in their lives, or collective change together. And when I first started this journey and I was performing these songs live for people, I was experiencing this type of burnout that was very hard to describe. It was like every time I played a show, it took so much out of me that I just had to go straight to sleep. And then I would sleep for 3 days and then come out of my cocoon and be like, okay, like how am I going to be able to tour if this is what it's taking out of me? And in a way, I was glad to have that cocoon of limited resources, because there was no demands on my time or demands on my appearance or like where I needed to be and when I needed to be. So I was able to learn how to wield vulnerability in a way that didn't leave me completely flayed and bloody every time. So now it's part of my craft to be able to save that energy for the stage and to hone it in a way that doesn't completely deplete me so that I can keep going. But I am protected by, a spiritual shell of sorts that I had to create, because when you're honest, when you're true, that also means that sometimes you're looking at a world that is in complete shambles, and it's very hard to put what you're doing up against all of the grief that's happening, and thinking to yourself, how does this change anything? And carrying that weight around, that responsibility of like wanting to create change, wanting to create good in the world, but not feeling every day like your song is doing that or your path as an artist is doing that, and that it's a selfish process. And so it's towing a line. It's how I guide my compass of where I want my career to go. Like, I don't pursue fame for fame's sake. I pursue the type of abundance that allows me to create without having to silence myself for resources. Every resource that I take has to maintain my freedom, otherwise I won't take it. And that's because I need the freedom, to be honest, whatever that requires of me as time goes on.
You mentioned you've sort of honed a spiritual shell. Does that come externally or through the work? or is it separate to the work and sort of within you as a person? How do you refine that and make it in service of the work?
Mm-hmm. It is, I guess, internal and ancestral. It's something that was probably there before I was aware of it, and protecting me and keeping me safe as the ancestors do, and the angels do. But as I came of age, my theory is in the ether that the control over that shell gets passed to you at a certain point. It's no longer your ancestors keeping guard over that shell for you. It's like, okay, now it's time for you to like use your own shell, and like we'll trust you to know who to let in and who to not, and that process of youth is what causes a lot of pain and all sorts of heartbreak. Is like, oh, I left the wrong person past the shell.
They're sort of, your ancestors are passing the baton to you in a way.
Exactly, and then you have to learn how to use it with as much wisdom as they have, which is a monster of a feat, because obviously they got hundreds of years on you and you just got here. So the shell is internal. The shell, we all have one, and the goal is to have a shell that is permeable by the world, not completely shut off, because you still need to feel, you still need to engage, you still need to see and observe as an artist, and you still need to be in conversation. But it's more so there for me as like, when I reach into that mysterious space where my voice comes from, where the songs come from, there's all sorts of other things swimming in that water. And all of those voices, not all of them need my body to be expressed. And the shell is there to discern what is for me and what is for someone else.
Well, just on that note, it's a very personal album. I get the sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you've done it in a way that resonates so universally. Like, as you said, I'm from the total opposite side of the world to you, and have found something deeply resonating within your work. What's the process been like inviting collaborators in to make a work so intimate and personal?
Yeah. Oh, hard. Because, of course, I'm protective of myself and my vulnerability and my bleeding heart. And the biggest struggle of music that I've had since I started it is the fact that it is a collective process, that I have to rely on other people. And it's funny because it is also one of my life lessons is trying to learn how to rely on other people and ask for help and not always be the strong one, and to be soft, and allow my softness to be my strength. And music is such a direct mirror to that process. So choosing my collaborators, it was interesting because I often have to work with what I've got, and I don't see that as a hindrance. I see that kind of as like a cool experiment, a cool prompt. It's like if you're only given, chopsticks and some super glue, and you have to create, the Tower of Pisa, it's like, okay, all right, I'll figure it out, And that's how I feel with music sometimes, where it's like, I have this goal, I have this ambition, I know how I want it recorded, I know what that's going to cost, but this is what I have. And this is who's around, and this is who I'd like to have there. And it's baby steps. It's like keeping in your vision where you want to be and who you want to be working with and the type of energy that you want in the room, at the apex of your career or at the apex of your time here, and trying to foster that in small ways as you can. But the commonality, I would say, with everybody that I chose to be a part of this process is a willingness to show up with an open heart. And I worked with a lot of men on this project, which is something that I'm always constantly trying to fight against, not because of any prejudice or misandry, but because 2% of producers in the music industry are women, and like the ratios are just really skewed.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to work harder to balance out the scales. But working with a lot of men, as I have most of my career as a young woman, is interesting because I'm in charge, obviously, and I'm leading them to have conversations with themselves that often they don't have the room for and the spaciousness for. And I felt like it was a mutual gift, where it was like they were giving me their music and their time and their expertise, and I was giving them a place where they got to feel and experience things that people don't give men the space to feel. And that, I think, lent to the vulnerability you feel in the room. Like everybody in that room, regardless of where they were from, regardless of gender, regardless of what was happening that day, I create a space where you get to come and just lay your heart on the floor, and at the end of the day, hug it out, pack it up, go home. But the next day you get to do that again. So for all of us, it's therapy. And as long as they're willing to be that vulnerable and that honest, that's all I need to make a record.
In terms of similarly healing or emotionally inviting pieces of work that have inspired you in making this, are there some albums that come to mind, or pieces of music that come to mind?
Yeah. So the album that set me on the folk track at all was Terry Collier's
What Color Is Love?
No, not What Color Is Love. He has an album where he covered all the folk standards.
Oh, cool.
And that album I found in 2020. And it's gorgeous. You should listen to it. I think it's called The Folk Sounds of Terry Collier.
Wow, never heard of it.
Yeah.
So good.
900 Miles is one of the most beautiful covers I've ever heard. And at that time in 2020, I wasn't aware of many Black artists from that era of time that were making folk music. I was ignorant to it, but since then I've found Odessa, and I've found Richie Havens, and many more people. And in the process of Tether, I was balancing textural references with songwriting references. So songwriting references have always been, Nina Simone, Bill Withers, Adrian Lenker, Bernice Johnson Reagan. There's a long list. And then texture-wise, I was looking at albums like Roberto Muschi's Tower of Silence and Exhuma's The Obia Man, for the ways that they bring life into the recording, real life into the recording, because that was the goal. I was trying to transcribe life onto wax, and try to guide my storytelling by the wisdom of all the people that came before me.
It's no small feat.
No.
Just to finish up, Annahstasia, I ask this of everyone I interview. If you could play me any album, what would you play me?
Any album? Okay. Hygieia by Joni Mitchell. It's one.
What do you like about it?
The writing. The writing's nuts. I don't know if you've ever listened to Hygieia, the song, but what insane poetry, and just encapsulates life so well. Man, this is a hard one. Well, The Folk Sounds of Terry Collier, it's two. And the third for me is Love Songs by Nina Simone.
What do you like about the Nina record?
I'm a fan of her entire catalog, but I think Love Songs is my favorite because it's such a tender side of her, and you can really hear the romantic that she is, and because historically she was pegged as this staunch revolutionary, and she was, but she was overly cast as the villain, as an aggressive Black woman, as somebody who was difficult to work with. which is not true, obviously. She just had standards and she had morals, and she was existing in a time when those were constantly being pushed, or boundaries were constantly being pushed. And Love Songs as a record is such a she just got to like do what everyone else is doing, just sing love songs and like be tender and talk about how she yearns for the type of love that fulfills her and carries her. And yes, they're all covers, but like just to hear her voice in that setting is so warming to the heart.
Well, I've had very similar experiences with your work. So
thank you.
Thanks for such a wonderful album.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Annahstasia.
Yes, it's been a pleasure.